Welcome to class, everyone. Today, we're going to dive right into the absolutely fascinating world of nuclear physics. In this explainer, we're demystifying two incredible, often misunderstood concepts: radioactivity and half-life. If you've ever felt kind of intimidated by atomic science, honestly, don't worry. By the end of our time today, you're going to see the invisible mechanisms powering our universe in a completely new light. Have you ever actually wondered how scientists can accurately date ancient fossils? Or how doctors can diagnose really complex diseases using medical tracers without harming the patient, or even how a single nuclear power plant generates such massive amounts of electricity? Well, the answer to literally all of these questions comes down to the totally predictable behavior of unstable atoms. So here's our lesson plan for today. 1. The basics of unstable atoms. 2. The magic of half-life. 3. Doing the math. 4. Real-world applications. And finally, 5. Busting some really common myths. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the basics of unstable atoms. Okay, let's start right at the foundation. As you know, every atom has a nucleus made up of protons and neutrons. Well, nature always wants to find stability. So for a nucleus with a kind of unfavorable, wobbly balance of those protons and neutrons, it becomes unstable. Radioactivity is basically just its natural way of releasing that excess energy to finally relax. It literally spits out particles or electromagnetic waves to transform into a much more stable state. Think of it like heating a pan of popcorn on the stove. You have absolutely no idea when one specific kernel is going to pop, right? It's completely random. But if you watch the whole batch, you can highly predict exactly how long it'll take for the entire pan to finish popping. Radioactive atoms behave exactly the same way. Individual atoms are totally random, but large groups, they are beautifully mathematically predictable.
And, this invisible magic was actually discovered completely by accident. Back in 1896, Henri Becquerel realized that uranium salts were exposing his photographic plates in complete darkness. He didn't even mean to find it, but man, it kicked off a rapid era of discovery. Brilliant minds like Marie and Pierre Curie discovered radium and polonium shortly after. Then by 1902, Ernest Rutherford and Frederick Soddy explained the actual mechanics of radioactive decay, revealing that these atoms were literally transforming into brand new elements.
Moving on to Section 2, the magic of half-life. Now that we know what radioactivity actually is, let's explore how scientists measure the rate of this decay over time. The crucial takeaway here is that a half-life is the time required for exactly half of the radioactive nuclei in a sample to decay. The word half is everything. It measures how quickly a radioactive substance loses 50% of its remaining unstable atoms, completely regardless of how many atoms you started with in the first place.
Let's look at an everyday analogy to make this stick. Imagine a bowl of 100 ice cubes sitting in a warm room, where exactly half of them melt every single hour. You start at 100. Hour 1 takes us down to 50. Hour 2 takes us to 25. Then roughly 12. Then 6. Notice the pattern. The amount drops exponentially. You are never just subtracting a flat rate of 50 cubes, you are continually dividing whatever is left in the bowl by 2.
Let's see how this builds into real science. Every radioactive isotope has its own unique, unchangeable biological clock. Take carbon-14, for example. It takes exactly 5,730 years for just half of its atoms to decay. Because we know this exact number, archaeologists can literally measure how much carbon-14 is left in a piece of ancient wood or bone, and calculate backwards to find out exactly when that living organism walked the Earth.
Now contrast that number with uranium-238. It has an absolutely massive half-life of 4.47 billion years. Because this specific decay is so incredibly slow, it acts as a permanent timer baked right into ancient rocks. This makes it absolutely perfect for geologists who want to study the deep geological history of the Earth itself.
All right, let's get into Section 3, doing the math.
Okay, let's head to the chalkboard. I know students often get intimidated by the equations here, but we're going to see just how easy it is to calculate this decay. No heavy calculus required. Imagine 64 burning candles, where half extinguish every hour. You can easily visualize how radioactive atoms disappear over successive half-lives. You just keep dividing by 2. After 1 hour, 32 are burning. After 2 hours, 16. After 3, 8. The math is beautifully simple when you just break it down into these half-life steps.
So let's say you have a 1600 atom sample of some isotope. It's got a 5-year half-life, and you wait 15 years. Step 1, figure out how many half-lives that is. Well, 15 divided by 5 is 3. So you've gone through 3 half-lives. Step 2,
Take your 1600 atoms and divide by 2, 3 times. 1600 goes to 800, then 400, and finally down to 200 remaining atoms. Boom! It really is that straightforward.
Time for Section 4, Real-World Applications. Let's step out of the classroom for a second and see how this math practically impacts our modern technology. In nuclear medicine, doctors use an isotope called technetium-99m. It has a very fast, 6-hour half-life. This means a doctor can use it to safely scan a patient's internal organs to find a diagnosis, and because that half-life is so short, the radioactivity drops off incredibly quickly. The patient isn't left exposed to radiation for too long. It's this perfect, delicate balance found through physics.
But medicine is really just the beginning here. From the Americium-241 that's powering the smoke detector in your hallway right now, to Cobalt-60 being used for targeted cancer radiotherapy. We use Uranium-235 to provide baseload electricity for entire cities, and we even use radioactive tracers to map global ocean currents. Understanding these decay rates keeps us safe, keeps the lights on, and genuinely helps us understand our planet.
And finally, Section 5, Busting Common Myths. To wrap up our explainer today, I want to play Mythbusters and correct a few very common mistakes I see students make on exams. Myth number 1, assuming all radiation is some artificial hazard created in a lab. In reality, natural background radiation is constantly all around us. It's in the cosmic rays from space, it's in the rocks and soil under our feet. There's even radioactive potassium naturally occurring inside our own human bodies. It's just a normal part of the natural world.
Myth number 2 is a huge math error. Many people think that since one half-life is 50%, 2 half-lives must be 100%, meaning it's all gone. Remember our ice cubes? You are never subtracting a fixed amount. You are constantly dividing by 2. Half of 100% is 50%, and half of 50% is 25%. It's a smooth, exponential curve that never just abruptly drops to 0.
And myth number 3, thinking you can speed up or slow down a half-life. You absolutely cannot rush an atom's biological clock. Whether you throw a radioactive rock into a freezing glacier, drop it into a boiling volcano, or crush it under massive pressure, its half-life remains an unchangeable constant of physics. The decay happens entirely inside the nucleus, completely isolated from those external chemical or temperature changes. So, class, we've covered the spontaneous nature of unstable atoms, the beautifully predictable mathematics of half-life, and how this invisible force literally powers our modern world. Now that you understand the predictable magic of radioactive decay, I'm going to leave you with this thought. If you discovered a brand new radioactive isotope tomorrow, what great scientific mystery of the universe would you use its atomic clock to unravel? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.